Hello guys, this video is for anyone that is either learning from home those first 9 weeks and or if you are in school but you would like a review tool before our quiz over lab safety. So what I've done is I have followed along with the study sheet that you have access to, and I've taken pictures around my classroom because if you're a student who's not coming in the classroom yet and has never been here before, it's hard to picture where some things are. So we're just going down the list. Now the first thing we have for equipment are fire extinguishers. It doesn't really matter which one is numbered 1 or which one is number 2, but I have 2 in my classroom. So they are by either door, and usually the one pictured on the left is the door that students come into. You're never allowed to come into the door on the right. Notice how it says exit only. So however you would like to distinguish between the 2 fire extinguishers is great. You could say, some people call the one on the left the entrance door and then the exit door for the one on the right. You could say near the trash can. You could say near the fire blanket. Whatever is a good indicator for you that you know where the fire extinguishers are, that's most important. The next item on the list, the 2 are together actually, are the eye wash and the chemical shower. So the eye wash is the bottom sink looking part of this yellow tubed apparatus, I guess you could say. It's next to the exit door. So how the eye wash works is that you flip up these little yellow pieces and then you push back on this metal plate right there, and when you push back then the water starts sprouting out kind of like a drinking fountain, and then the only way that you can turn it off is you have to pull that metal piece back towards you. Now we don't use this chemical eye wash or shower very often because if you notice down here, this is where all of the runoff goes from the piping, and so it just drains onto my floor and it floods my classroom. The shower is the top portion, so it's kind of like a shower at home, but it's going to be a lot more forceful. How you work it is this triangular piece right here. You pull down and the water flows out. Now this only gets checked maybe once a year, so the water that will come out at first is really gross and disgusting because it's not running water. It's just sitting in a reservoir waiting for whenever we need it, which, knock on wood, we've never needed to use a chemical shower yet, and I hope that that continues this year. But then the way that you would turn it off is you would have to push up this lever. So you would have to push it up in order to turn it off. And again, I don't like to even show how this works because the spray will actually, this is the corner of my desk, it will actually hit my desk and it could potentially ruin my computer. So we're just going to practice our lab safety and then we don't have to use it. Next is the fire blanket, which is right next to the chemical shower. If you didn't notice that, I opened it up in this picture just so you can see how it comes out. It comes out the bottom. It's a very wool, scratchy blanket that has been treated with a fire retardant so that it will put out a fire. When do we use the fire blanket? When a person catches on fire. So you know you were taught in kindergarten, first grade to stop, drop, and roll, right? If you yourself catches on fire. So while you're stopping, dropping, and rolling on the floor, somebody else in the room will run and grab the fire blanket to help smother out the fire on top of you. This is not a blanket that you want to curl up with when you are cold. It's stinky, it's scratchy, and its sole purpose is to put out a fire on a person's body or hair. The chemical shower is used for the, if you get chemicals like all over your body, not fire, because sometimes fire gets worse with water, so we have to be careful with that. But if you were to spill like a big beaker of chemicals all over your person, and the fastest way to get rid of that is to just douse you in water, that's when we use this chemical shower. And then the eye wash is used if you ever were to get chemicals in your eye, but we shouldn't because we're going to wear goggles. All right, next on the list is the fume arm and switch. So the fume arm hangs at the back of my classroom from the ceiling. This takes the place of a fume hood. I know some of the classrooms in our school have that, but when they remodeled my classroom, we didn't really have space. So instead we have this fume arm. that hangs from the ceiling, and it's nice because I can put it like over a beaker or over something, and it just sucks it right up into a filter that's on the roof of the school before it lets out any of the air, so we don't put any harmful gases out into the atmosphere. Now, the switch confuses people because they think that it's this little damper right here, but really that just stops the airflow. But that's not the switch. The switch is actually over by my desk, and out of these two, it is the one, it says exhaust fan, and what's nice about it is when it is turned on, that green light switch will light up, so you will see the light that it's turned on. Because sometimes it's so quiet you can't even tell that it's turned on, and I might forget every once in a while that it is turned on. So this is confusing for people with the two switches. It's the one on the left with the green light by Miss Lomler's desk to turn on and off the fume arm. And the reason why I have you guys know where that switch is because if I'm ever doing a demonstration at the back of the room and I forgot to turn it on for whatever reason, then it's just easy for somebody who's closest to come over and turn it on for me. All right, next one is the broken glass container. This is next to the demonstration table. I did not take a picture of the back of my room. I just realized that. I apologize, but I am recording this before school starts, so not everything is put together yet. The reason why we have a broken glass container, we really put anything that's broken and sharp into this container. Why? Because if you have ever tried to work with one of these very thin plastic trash bags that we have at school, they're easily poked through. So we want to put all of the sharp, broken pieces into the same container so that when the custodian comes to clean up, we are not putting them in danger or ourselves. And so something else with this broken glass container, it says broken glass only, so hopefully that's a reminder for you. It's always kind of fun when people break something and they get to throw it away. It makes a loud crashing noise. But we don't want to put like paper towels or any other trash in there so that we are not making it, so the custodians can't see what's in there. We need to make them safe, and we need to be safe as well. And if you ever break something, I have dustpans to clean it up. We will take care of business. The first time we break glass in this class, it's going to be a big deal, but really it's not a big deal. Some labs, we break stuff all the time, and it won't. If it's you, it's okay. Next, we have the goggle storage center. So this is easily spotted because it says its name right on it. This has an ultraviolet bulb that zaps germs. So we store all of our goggles in here. It's located at the front of the room. So you'll probably see it quite often. And if you're in class, you're going to be using the hand sanitizer multiple times because of the situation we're in. So the hand sanitizer is on that. So it's at the front of the room. It's where we put our goggles. You can say next to the door, front of the room, something like that to describe where it's located. Next, we're back to my desk for the emergency call button. This button calls the office, and no, it's not my telephone. The emergency call button is the button on the right side. So it says press to call, which probably is kind of hard to see, but that will notify the secretaries in the office. So if something were to happen, let's say that somebody's catches on fire, so they're stopping, dropping, and rolling, and somebody else is running to the fire blanket to grab that, then maybe a third person can hit the call button so that somebody outside of our room knows that there is an emergency happening and we need help ASAP. Okay? So we normally don't touch the emergency call button, but if we ever need to, we can. And that's the button where somebody's voice will come over the PA system and ask, like, what's the problem? And then anybody in the room can then talk to that person instead of trying to call on the phone. But that would be a good thing to know where that is. And last but not least, the emergency gas shutoff. Now, if you flip back to, or if you go back a little bit, rewind, to the bigger picture of the exit-only door, that's where this wall is. It's kind of next to that fire extinguisher underneath the fire blanket on that corner of the room. And the reason why I have you know where this is located is I have to use a key to turn it on, anytime that we use gas in the classroom. So normally if we're not using gas, it's turned off. But what if we have a fire on the counter while we're doing a lab, and the fire is being fueled from the gas that's coming out of your Bunsen burner? Well, the most logical way to stop the fire is to shut off the supply of gas. So the way that you do that is you would just hit this red button, and it will take a couple seconds for any residual gas to get out, but that's how you would shut it off. So maybe in a situation, an emergency situation, when I'm trying to use a fire extinguisher to put out the fire on the tabletop on the counter, then I can ask one of you students to go and turn off the gas for me. So this is what it looks like, and it is the red button. You wouldn't be able to do anything with the other one because you need a key. So this is just a little list if you need to pause because you didn't know what to write down, where things are located. On the quiz, this is going to be a short answer list, so you will you'll write in or type in your answer, and if it sounds about right, I will accept it. So it's you just want to make sure that you're descriptive enough so that I know where you know where it is. Okay? So pause if you need to, but otherwise we're moving on. All right, some other things on lab days that we need to be prepared for. First of all, proper clothing. You need to come ready to have a lab in class. So first of all, closed-toed shoes. No flip-flops, no mandals, no Crocs, because Crocs have holes at the toe area. I don't know if you've ever hurt your toe before, but it doesn't feel good. So one of the rules is we need to have closed-toe shoes. Some students will keep a pair of shoes at school. I know that's going to be a little difficult now with not having lockers this year, but maybe second semester we'll have lockers, who knows. But if you have a PE class and you have shoes for that, those totally work. So you don't necessarily have to wear shoes to school. You just need shoes when you come into my classroom for lab day. No loose clothing. You don't want to have like a billowy scarf that has tassels, or a necklace that's like hanging around and flying around, or like big billowy sleeves or anything like that. You want to just be careful and mindful of your clothes because you don't want it to catch on fire. And then your hair needs to be pulled back if it is touching or longer than your collarbone. So if you don't understand what that means, your collarbone is on the front of your body, under your neck, kind of in line with your shoulders. If it's touching or below your collarbone, you have to put your hair up. And that applies to everyone, not just the ladies. The gentlemen have to do that too. Okay? So on a lab day, we will use Remind, and I will send out a Remind message either the night before or the morning of that says, we have lab today. Make sure that you have closed-toed shoes, no loose clothing, hair pulled back. Now the hair pulled back, typically I make that more mandatory when we have labs that we use fire, because I don't want your hair to catch on fire. Sometimes people don't realize how long and beautiful their hair is, and then it just whips around. It can also knock something over on the table, so that's another hazard for lab, but you just want to make sure that that's done. So I will give you ample amount of time to prepare. I will remind you. It'll be written on the board. You shouldn't forget. It's not my fault if you forget. Okay, so that's what you should do when you come into the classroom when it's lab day. Before you start a lab, this is my face when you don't listen and read what you're supposed to do. I don't know how many of you are Despicable Me fans, but so before starting lab, you want to read through the lab procedure and answer pre-lab questions if we have them. Usually I will talk about it and go over those pre-lab questions with you. I might give you some extra instruction, or I might show you how to do something, and so you want to listen to that, maybe make some notes. Maybe we have to change the procedure because of timing issues, or maybe because of supply issues. So you just want to listen and make sure that you are paying attention to me when I say something important, because it is important. Then when it is time and when I dismiss you to start the lab, then the first thing you'll do before anything else is put on your safety goggles and gloves. This year we are wearing gloves for every lab, and then get started. If you don't understand something, please ask me for help. Don't just make it up. When you make stuff up, that's when we have issues. So make sure that you ask if you have questions. All right, we always have to be mindful of fire hazards in the lab. One time I did have a student who almost burnt down my classroom, and it was in the first year that we moved into my newly remodeled classroom, so that was fun. We want to make sure that we keep flammable materials away from open flames, like alcohol or paper towels. We want to just keep a clean countertop while you're working so that nothing could potentially get into the fire. Also, be mindful of your loose clothing and long hair around a flame so that you are not accidentally catching yourself on fire. If a fire should happen, notify me immediately and wait for directions. So say like, Miss Hell, there's a fire. You know, you don't have to raise your hand, just scream it so that everybody knows. If it is a person on fire, that person should be stopping, dropping, and rolling on the floor, like we learned how to do when we were little, while another person in the room, maybe it's their lab partner, maybe it's the person closest to the fire blanket, is getting the fire blanket to help put out the fire on that person. For all other fires, then we will use the fire extinguisher. So in order to extinguish a fire, you should know where they're located, how to operate the fire extinguisher, and who is responsible. So 99% of the time, Miss Lomeler, I am responsible for using the fire extinguisher. The 1% of the time that I am not going to be using it is when maybe something drastic happens and there's a spill on the floor and I'm running for the fire extinguisher and I slip and I fall and I get knocked unconscious and then I need somebody else to save the day. So in that 1% scenario chance, please, please, please save me. I promise I will save you. Please save me too. Okay? Thank you. All right, so if we have evacuation drills, like a fire drill or whatever, some procedures that we have, we are going to go out door 32, which is between my classroom and the planetarium. That's the closest door to go outside. And then we line up near the old tennis courts. So I like to go down to the 4th tennis court down because everybody crowds around the greenhouse. So if we just get out of the way, standing on the grass, then we're out of the way. And we stand on the grass because what if there are vehicles or if a fire truck needs to come because it's not a drill, then we are not going to get hit by a car standing in the road. For a tornado drill, then we go to S141, which is in Miss Jacoby's classroom, right around the corner, across from the preschool. And many of you may have Miss Jacoby in class, so then you kind of already know what her classroom is like. But we would go in there, sit on the floor, cover our heads for the tornado drill. Sometimes we do tornado and then fire. And so what's nice is we're already by the door that we should exit for the fire drill. And then for a lockdown drill, we would hide in the classroom. We make sure the doors are locked. We're not looking at our phones to have light on. We turn off all the lights. We turn off the TV, turn off the computer screens. And we actually come to the wall that's closest to the hallway because I've got bookshelves in the way and it's where no one in the hallway can see you. So we will practice those more in person. Okay? But those are what we do when we have to evacuate the room or hide in the room, I guess. No horseplay ever. Do you guys know what horseplay is? Horseplay is like messing around, okay? Sometimes I know we just like to have fun, and when you have unstructured time to use chemicals and test things, then some people get a little crazy, or they think that some things are a good idea when they're not. So make sure that you don't mess around because you could potentially be kicked out of the class, and you could potentially lose all you could potentially use your lab privileges for the year, which that is not fun, to have to watch a video of a lab instead of actually doing the lab. Some important tips about glassware, because we use a lot of glassware, like beakers and test tubes and all that kind of stuff. Hot glass looks the same as cold glass. I don't know if you've ever taken like a Pyrex plate, casserole dish out of the oven. It's hot, even though it looks the same as when you put it inside. The food might look different, but the actual container does not. So just be careful of that. We forget that. Wait to pick up anything until it cools down. We have tools to help us pick up warm objects. And we have lots of different tools. We'll learn about all of those when we talk about our lab equipment. When heating a test tube, we want to make sure that we point the end away from all people. You might have used a test tube in a different class. I will demonstrate this when we talk about lab equipment. And if you break anything, please tell me immediately. Do not just try and hide it. Do not throw it in the trash can. We need to put it in the broken glass container so that we are being safe, and we use dustpans. Usually I'll be the one to clean it up, just so you don't cut yourself or anything like that. But just be careful with that. And remember, no trash allowed in the broken glass container. Other hazards besides fire and glass. We are not allowed to eat or chew gum in lab. So it's just a respectful thing when I say, okay, don't forget to spit out your gum before starting the lab. I just expect that you do it. If I have to continuously remind you to spit out your gum because you are not listening, then consequences will occur. Okay, so just don't do it. Don't put unused chemicals back into the original containers. See if somebody behind you in line needs it. The reason why we do that is because of contamination issues. And we also like to make sure we cap all containers at all times. All chemicals are considered dangerous unless I tell you otherwise. And don't ever taste something. We use a lot of a solution that looks like blue Kool-Aid, and it's not blue Kool-Aid. So please do not try to drink it or taste it, because it can make you sick, and we don't need that. If you get a cut, a burn, or you don't feel well, please tell me immediately so that we can take care of you. Your safety is the #1 priority when we are doing labs, and so I just want to make sure that you are healthy and safe when we are doing our experiments. And if you ever get an acid or other chemical in your skin, we wash with water first before you use soap, because sometimes the chemical could negatively react with the soap. I know some people put soap on their hands before they use water, but we need to use water first before we use the soap. Before you leave the lab at the end of a class, you want to make sure that you clean up your lab station. We are going to be sanitizing even more than normal to help stop the spread of germs. So I will instruct in person how to do that. Dispose of all waste appropriately. I will tell you where it needs to go. Sometimes we throw things in the trash can, and sometimes we don't. I have to collect it and dispose of it elsewhere. So just listen to where I tell you to throw away your waste. Wash your hands with soap and water. One of the benefits of my classroom is that we have 6 wonderfully working sinks with great smelling soap in here, so wash your hands whenever you need it. And if you're not done after most of the class is finished, then we'll set up a time to finish the lab. So we have some special procedures that we're going to do this year because of COVID. One thing that's actually new, and I didn't mention this before, is we're going to wear gloves. This will allow for less germ transfer, and that way we don't have to soak all of our glassware in a sanitizing solution, because in between class periods we don't have time for that. So by wearing gloves, then we're protecting ourselves, and we're also not giving our germs to someone else. We still will do a lot of cleaning with dish soap and all of that kind of thing. Just be careful that we don't have to use a special sanitizing solution by wearing gloves. We also will have to continue to wear our mask when we also have goggles on our face. And the goggles are splash proof, so that means that sometimes the airflow is prohibited a little bit, and for those of us who run a little warm, it could be very uncomfortable. So we're just going to make the best of the situation. We will practice if we need to. But then some things normally what's happened in the past is one lab partner would go and get the goggles, and then the other lab partner would go to their station and start setting up their equipment. But because of this whole being mindful of germs, I'm not going to allow that this year. Everyone needs to get their own pair of goggles, and I'll probably assign cubbies for you so that I know whose goggles are whose. Then also, before you put the goggles back into the container, we will sanitize them, because they will be touching your face and they'll be around your eyes. So we will use the sanitizer spray and wipe them down with paper towel before they go in the storage center, and then I will also use the UV bulb to shock away any other germs that might still be there for the next class. So you know that that's happening before you come in, so that you will do that for the next class that comes after you. It's just a nice little respectful, pay it forward kind of situation. well, we will make the best of this year, and we'll learn as we go. So I'm recording this, like I said, before school starts, and like a week before school starts, and things may change by the first day of school. So we've seen that happen all summer long. So we'll just make the best of it as much as we can.